What the Powell Fed is doing is taking out the crisis era playbook. And we saw that with 50 basis points in their meeting last week, and we're seeing it this week with the massive liquidity injections. But I think it's right to think of that as a down payment on zero rates and QE at the meeting next week. And then in addition, given the significant liquidity stresses that we're seeing in the markets, I mean, frankly, it's like a meteor has hit bond market liquidity over these last few days. I think the Fed is going to be rolling out its liquidity facilities. I think we will see the swap lines activated. The Fed has a meaningful toolkit here. And I think it can be supportive. I think ultimately we'll need support as well from fiscal policy. But the Fed is gearing up a pretty powerful arsenal of responses, I think.
What's the state of the bond market right now? You just said it's been rocked over the last few days. Is it better after this Fed move?
Well, I think that the announcement yesterday from the Fed, I think that we are slowly digesting what it meant. That on its face, it seemed to emphasize the liquidity aspects, which were helpful, but the issue is getting the liquidity to the parts of the market that are most necessary. But I think as folks have reflected further on where the Fed is, the commitment of the Powell Fed, I think that there's increased confidence that they're going to do more. And I think that is likely to help unlock the liquidity in the market. But ultimately, I think we're going to need to see these purchases, and we're going to need to see those facilities actually activated.
Hey, Jason, let's talk about the fiscal policies you'd like to see. Nathan's been covering what the Fed should do, what monetary policy should do. You obviously were in the Obama administration when there were a lot of different actions that were taking place. You have seen things like the things that are being talked about this time around, the payroll tax cut. And I don't think you've been incredibly supportive of a plan like that because of what happened the last time around when we tried it.
Yeah. So first of all, let me just say the thing I find most comforting at this moment is it appears to me from a distance, and I don't know for sure, that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, and Secretary Mnuchin are working really well together. One of the important things that happened in 2008 was then Secretary Paulson and then Speaker Pelosi worked well together. They did a fiscal stimulus at the beginning of 2008. They worked together on TARP. What we're going to see here is we're going to need to take a number of different steps. If they reach this deal that their Speaker Pelosi says they're close to reaching, that's important. It'll include nutritional assistance, unemployment insurance, paid leave, testing, and something I think is really important, more assistance to state Medicaid programs so that they don't cut them back in the face of a public health crisis. The problem is that's just the first part of what we're going to need to do on fiscal policy. That's not going to be, it's going to be great, but it's not going to be nearly large enough. I think the way to scale it up now is cash. Large amounts of cash,
to who?
Flat amount per household. I'd give it to everyone. Last week I said $1,000 an adult, $500 a child. Based on the developments over the last week, I would be more than happy to double that.
But Jason, I thought the issue with this time around is that even people who have money don't want to go out and spend because they're afraid of what happens with the virus. Wouldn't it be better to have very targeted stimulus going to workers to make sure that they're covered if they feel sick, making sure that businesses that need small or low interest loans to make sure that they can continue to keep their business afloat during these times? Wouldn't that make more sense?
We should do all of that. So everything you just said we should do. But my experience from last time is if you try to get too cute with the targeting, you try to be too careful, you can craft a lovely proposal and it ends up with fewer people signing up than you expected. It ends up missing a lot of people who need it. I wouldn't think of this as a conventional fiscal stimulus. This isn't you write people a check and they're going to go spend the money on a cruise line to help the U.S. economy. This is people whose incomes are going down. awful lot of people in this country are going to see their incomes go down. A lot of them, a payroll tax cut wouldn't reach.
You wouldn't even
I think we also need to. What?
You wouldn't even means
you know, if you want to cut out the top 5% of people, that's fine. But I'd just make it simple and do it for everyone. But you could face it down at the top. I don't think that's a problem. But the other thing we have to remember here is the economic problems could persist after we get the virus under control. If we can get it under control in 2 months, I think we'll be okay. If it lasts 6 months or longer, you'll see business balance sheets in really bad shape, consumer balance sheets in really bad shape, people who have been parted from their jobs, and it takes a long time for the economy to recover from that. You know, getting cash now, you know, might help the economy next year as well too. So, the last thing I'd say, you know, Becky, think of it as an interest. Think of it as a loan. Federal government can borrow money now at a negative real rate. They're effectively lending people money. Of course, taxes will be higher down the road, or spending lower down the road to pay for this. But that's a good deal with interest rates where they are right now.
Yeah. Anyway, Jason, thank you for joining us today. Nathan, thank you. It's good to see you both.